I've grown to not wanting to give people any information on what I plan to do with the comic business or just my life in general. Well, mostly with my comic business, nobody really cares about what I want to do with my life, you know? And I say that specifically because I am constantly reminded of this one time, or just in general, when I show people what I have and at my disposal, my website, my comics, and mostly what people say to me is I just need to get some exposure and everything will be all right. And what usually come after that are people's unsolicited advice when it comes to that. There's one specific example that I remember when I was selling at a flea and farmer's market. There was an old head that came up to me in my booth when I was selling my comics. He said, "You have a lot of good things going for you. You know what would set you over the bar? What you need to do is contact an animation company to animate your comics." And I was thinking, what are you talking about? Yeah, sure. Let me just call up Mappa. Let me just call up no, some Western animation studio to spend time and effort on an IP that they don't even know that has an audience first. So I had to explain to him why that was a bad idea. Because in order for something to be animated, there needs to be an established audience, because an animation is a product that has a lot of man hours and a lot of money thrown into this initial investment. And making an animation is not even the end goal itself. It's a commercial to sell the merchandise, right? And he said, okay, if you want people to buy the merchandise, why don't you set up a print-on-demand clothing store? And I said, yes, I have a print-on-demand clothing store where I repurpose panels. I would like to make new designs, but I was trying to focus on that for a while, like back and forth between working on the comics and having material to print on shirts and whatnot. But the main problem that I noticed is if nobody knows the designs of the characters, they're not going to be interested in buying. So there needs to be, then you have a chicken and egg situation, which honestly, the initial exposure that people always go back to is if the creator is a notable figure, right? But then he was like, okay, so why don't you collaborate with other people? Then I said, sir, I had a podcast, several episodes where I would get lesser known people and people that are more known than me on the podcast, and that was my form of collaboration. And what I found out is people don't bleed over when it comes to podcasts. You don't get any clout when it comes to podcasts. It's more or less of a favor to put content on one channel to another, right? So, and suffice to say, right, all the artists that I had on my podcast, there's no real reciprocation of platforming. I bring them on, they don't promote. I have all of the responsibility of making the content, mastering the audio, uploading it on YouTube and Spotify and Shorts and X, Y, and Z, letting them know on Facebook. Well, they just do it for an hour. We talk for an hour or 30 minutes, and they call it. They provide images of their comic, and they call it a day. There's no reciprocation from it. And then he says, okay, so let's go back to your website. Do you have a heat map on your website? And I'm like, yes, I have a heat map on my website. Well, do you have, well, not only that, he's like, well, before he asked a heat map, he asked if I had a website. I said, yes, I have a website. A heat map? Yes, I have a heat map. Well, do you put your things on YouTube? I said, yes, I put literally everything on my YouTube. I put the creation of the comics on YouTube. I put the actual panels on YouTube. Heck, I even had AI and real people voice the characters of the comics on YouTube. Anything that you could think of, I've done it, and I can write a college page, like a college paper on what I did, why it would work, why it didn't, right? And I remember he ended this conversation saying, well, it seems like you know everything that there is to know about what you're doing here, but the problem is you're still here. You're not where you want to be. And to this day, that irks me. Because it reminds me of the time when I was reviewing people on the podcast. I would tell them why I was doing it, my approach, my philosophies on marketing, creating comics, writing, illustrating, breaking down media, dissecting what's important in life. And everyone says, Mason, you're gonna make it. Even when I was writing, when I was illustrating, live streaming, I would get people to say, yeah, you're going to be the next big thing. And
I'm just trying to get,
oddly enough, that just made me feel worse.
All figured out.
I don't know why, but if I had to put my finger on it, on the pulse of why it did, it would have to be because of impatience. If everybody could see that, if everybody could see into the future that this is all going to work out, then why hasn't it worked? What am I doing wrong? Was I ever doing anything right to begin with? But hey, that's just me, huh?